I am so excited for those who have joined us today. Our topic, as you can see on the screen, is welcome to our Lunch and Learn session, Managing Paper. So why are we here today? Not just so you can see this gorgeous, beautiful background where I'm at the beach, but no, we have more to do than that. Due to popular requests, we are offering a series of Lunch and Learns to help you manage your facilities. Manage them better, manage them stronger, faster. And today's topic is managing paper or paper cuts. So we hear a lot of that. I assume everyone here has paper in their professional lives. Don't feel bad. That about almost most of the people that we come across, the majority of the companies we meet with, they're still operating in a very much in a paper environment. Today, we're going to discuss the pitfalls of paper and offer some helpful tips for doing it better. Today's speaker is the founder and former president of AerieHub, Morton. Lori's background is facility management and facility construction. She started Aerie Engineering in 1998, and over the years has seen many archive rooms. She will share some of the risk associated with paper, as well as some of the tips to help you manage your paper and minimize your risk. Just a couple of housekeeping comments. Please submit your questions throughout the session through the chat. And we've left a few minutes at the end to try to answer them. If we don't get to your question, I will personally reach out after the session and answer it. And as always, we are happy to continue the conversations. Just send me an email or give me a call. And again, you'll see that at the end of the slides. Lori, I hand it over to you.
Great, thank you, Barb. I don't know if you need to do anything to make me the presenter, but hopefully everyone can see my screen. Can you see that, Barb? All right. Can you hear me, Barb? Yeah, okay, great. I think she just muted. So first, let's talk a little bit about paper. I think, most everyone still has a lot of paper in their lives, and we're talking about facility documentation and in particular, facility drawings. So when we think about paper, I want to make a distinction between data and information. Data would be the facts, the details, the instructions. And information, I think of information as data that has been processed in a way that makes it easy to consume. So think about data as, let's say, a project set of drawings. For a typical building, you may have anywhere from 50 to 250 drawings. And there's a ton of details in those drawings, tons. It tells you everything about building that facility. Think about information as the content of the drawing. Think of it as the electrical schematic, the single line diagrams, the plumbing diagrams. So it's the information in those details. That's what you need. That's what you need to get to have access to. So our goal should be to make information available, accessible to the people who need it. When you think about the people who need it, there are different needs. There are the maintenance techs, and they need to see that P&L, that single line diagram. And then there are the engineers and the architects. They need to get to a project set. If they're tasked with doing a major renovation, they're going to need to see all that data, all those details. So as we walk through this presentation and we're thinking about our paper, understanding first our goal and thinking about the different needs is going to be important. Why paper? Honestly, we already have it. Architects hand over a lot of paper at the end of a project. We pretty much know how to use it. You don't need an instruction manual. You've been using paper since kindergarten, preschool. You can write on it. I'm going to talk about later how that can be an advantage as well as a disadvantage. And because it's physical, we have control of it, or at least we think we do. We can fold it, we can take it with us, we can roll it up, throw it in the truck. But you have to understand there are many risks. with depending on paper. So anytime you're thinking about managing your facility in a paper world, it is so important to think about these risks. That's how you're going to have the best chance of managing these risks. So let's go over a few of these. First, there's space. You need a lot of space when you have physical paper drawings. Drawings are large, you need a place to put them. How many of you have a facilities, a maintenance department that looks similar to this? You see the sticks hanging, you see rolls of drawings on a desk, you see rolls of drawings on a bed. So this is a hospital maintenance department. We see that Joe works here, but my point is it takes a lot of space to hold these drawings. Here's another example. One of our clients, when we walked in to start working with them, they have drawers, they have labels on some of the drawers, but look how many drawings aren't in drawers. And it's because, quite frankly, they ran out of space. Another client, before we started helping them with their drawings, think about trying to find information in this. Or this scenario, in this case, they've got the drawings up in a mezzanine area. This is one of our clients that needed more space for their drawings. So this is actually a bathroom. You can see the stalls if you look closely. They just needed somewhere to put all these facility drawings. So space can be a premium. I don't know many of our clients that say they have the luxury of too much space. They're always looking to convert space into something different, whether it's offices, more maintenance shop, or something else. Space is a premium. Security, security of your information. If these drawings get left somewhere, you might as well just hand over the keys to your building. So one story, a facility manager told me that one time they were doing a renovation on one of his buildings, and he walked out to go home and saw all these drawings. This is the picture he took. Drawings are literally on the curb. He was shocked. He went over and started looking at these drawings, and they're very important drawings. What had happened is a contractor was told to clean up this space for a renovation. Contractor didn't think twice about it. They put it on a cart and hauled it outside and put it literally on the curb. This manager was furious, and he spent the next couple of hours toting everything back into the department. Now, imagine if that manager had parked on the other side of the building, or the curb was on the other side of the building, or if that manager had left at noon for a meeting and would have never seen that, and the next day it would be gone. So when you have paper, it's just super, super important that you make sure it's secure. You do not want paper to get into the wrong hands. Safety, that's the biggest risk. I think as facility professionals, your primary job is to ensure the safety of your inhabitants. No one wants what you see here. No one wants an active shooter situation. It's the unthinkable. So it doesn't have to be an active shooter. It could be a natural disaster. I mean, just look at all the rains they're having in California now. Look at that, we're in winter. We had a big freeze storm come through. When was that? About a month ago. So with that comes power outages. When there's a power outage, you need to get the information. Where's your backup generators? Where's the shut-off valves? All these things. The bottom line is safety is critical. As a facility professional, you need to make safety a top priority. And part of safe facilities is access to the information on those drawings. Paper is fragile. It's prone to damage. Some of the drawings that we come into are one-of-a-kind drawings. This maybe predates CAD, or maybe they just never had the CAD files. They don't have access to that to reproduce them. We got a call one time from a university that had their drawings stored in a mezzanine area above the maintenance department. And they called us because they'd had a roof leak over the weekend, and they lost hundreds of drawings. Because when the drawing gets wet, the ink bleeds off. And some of these were drawings from 1960, original construction. They were sick about it. They asked us, was there any way to recover the content of these drawings? And there's not. So paper is fragile, it's prone to damage. Can you imagine trying to pull a drawing out of this pile? What if you need to get near the bottom or in the middle? And look at all the torn drawings on the top. We had one technical specialist that found a corner of a drawing, and she taped it on the wall of the maintenance department with a note that said, "Have you seen pieces of me?" And that taped piece stayed up on the wall for probably, I don't know, a couple of months. And gradually pieces of that drawing started coming about as we started cleaning out the drawers in the archive. We found piece after piece, and we were able to put most of it back together again. But the bottom line, when it's paper, it's fragile. Paper, you know, I said that you can mark on it, you can write on it, but can you really make meaningful edits? So in this drawing on the left, you can see all the annotation and marks and scribbled out notes. This is a set of drawings from one of our clients. And obviously someone with good intention was trying to communicate changes, but wow, can you imagine trying to figure out that in an emergency? The other thing about writing on paper that it's really important to bring up is version control. You know, you have multiple pieces of paper, multiple copies of the same drawing, and you could have someone write on one and then someone write on a different one. And now suddenly there are two different drawings. And how does someone know which one is more correct or that there's even a second one? This is a very sad story. One of our clients, a maintenance tech, needed to fix a plumbing leak. And he was fairly new to the organization, been there a couple years maybe, and went to the archives and found the drawing that showed the wall where he needed to work. And he studied it carefully, took his tools up there, he cut in the wall. And what he didn't know is an oxygen line had been added. So there was another piece of paper showing that edit in another drawer. The maintenance tech severed the oxygen line, and a man on the operating table went 7 minutes without oxygen and suffered permanent brain damage. Just a horrendous situation for everyone. Imagine how that maintenance tech felt. Imagine the family of that poor man. The hospital settled out of court in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. And literally the next day they called us and say, how can you get all of our information in this system? Because once you start marking up a drawing, how do you keep track of it? How do you know that you have the right one? Paper also, it limits your communication. It limits collaboration. When you have one copy, what do? You know, if you're standing there with your workmate and looking at it together, that's fine. But we need more than that, especially in today's world when people work remotely. How do you share information when it's paper? This is another tragic story. We met with a facility manager who was over a school district when there was an active shooter. And he told us how horrible it was when he got the call that the elementary school was on lockdown and they needed the floor plan drawing immediately. They needed to see all the entrance and exits to that building. So this man ran into the archives room. He flipped through the drawings. He found the floor plan of that one elementary school and sped to the site. Took him a good 15, 20 minutes to get there. And I bet you he was doing warp speed to get there. He gets there with that drawing and he walks up and 5 different groups needed to see that drawing at the same time. And there's just one piece of paper. And this man had tears in our eyes as he said, wow, I wish I had a way that I could have shared that information, because a little boy died that day. It was tragic. Another cost to living in a paper world that you really can't ignore, well, there's multiple costs, I guess I should say. You know, there's the cost of buying the paper, there's the cost of printing, the ink, the space, the inefficiencies of sharing it, and you know, and lost time and resources. We had one school district who put off going to an e-library and then later told us that they tracked their effort, and in less than 8 months they would have easily paid for the whole system in just the time that it took that manager to go get a copy made of a drawing. because he had to get in his car and drive a good 45 minutes to the next town, the city that had a large format scanner copier. He said he was constantly being asked for information. So there's that cost. But then I think you need to pay attention to the environmental impact of paper. So this is one of our company cards after weeding out duplicates. And this is a local recycling station. We used to take our drawings there. Every week we would take a load of drawings there. Now we have a company come in and shred those and recycle them. But the impact on the environment is big. I say this a lot to people that we may not see a paperless environment, at least in my lifetime. Maybe you guys are all much younger than me, but man, we can shoot for less paper, certainly. One tree makes approximately 500 drawings, e-size drawings. Okay, takes one whole tree. Worldwide, humans cut down about 15 billion trees a year, and they replant 5 billion. So at this rate, all the trees are going to be lost in less than 300 years. People want to do the right thing. They want to know that they're helping the environment. So you can't ignore this as a risk of paper. All right, now that I went through all the scary stuff and the negative stuff, and you're feeling probably beaten down, let's talk about what you can do today. That's what this is about. This webinar is supposed to help you, gain more control over your facility information. So today, here's what I recommend as step one. Put someone in charge. I say this often: when everyone is in charge, no one's in charge. You know, years ago, there were archivists that worked for companies. I know when I started at Michelin, we had an archivist. And you went to see that person and you checked out her drawing, you had to sign your name, and man, you better turn it back in, or that archivist should come looking for you. And she had a big stick. Made you accountable. And then the archivist knew exactly where to put that drawing so that the next person who needed it can find it. When you tell everyone in your team, hey, you guys are all responsible, it just gets watered down. Find a person in your group who maybe they keep their toolbox really neat. You know, they have the uniform is nice and crisp, and you can tell they care about things. That's the kind of person who you'd like to have some ownership in your archive room. So let's put someone in charge. You don't want to be the manager introducing your new hire to your archives and it a wreck. So let's put someone in charge and let's start addressing the problems. Two, this is an easy step. Buy some stamps. Here's 3 stamps that I recommend you get. We use these stamps a lot at Aerie. Very, very helpful to stamp the paper. The next step is pretty big. You need to start sorting, and you need to create an inventory. You need to know what you have, and almost more importantly, well, yeah, definitely more importantly, you need to know what you don't have. So what we recommend is you go through a sorting process with your drawings. You group them by building. Building is so important. You got to know that first. And then often we recommend grouping by project. You need to know, is it the original construction? Is it a renovation? And then grouping by the sheet level. The next step is really important. You got to weed out all the crap you don't want. If you think about it, during a project, there are many versions of drawings that are issued. And the maintenance group seems to be the place where those documents land. You've got all the design iterations. You've got the bid set. You've got the permit set. You've got the 90% construction set. You've got the release for construction set. Then you've got construction iterations and red lines. And then finally, as-built. What I tell people all the time is a couple things. One, you don't really care what someone was thinking about building. So all those design sets, guess what? They can go in your dumpster or a shred bin. You don't care about all the different iterations before the building was built. What you care about is what was built. So in our world, that's called as-built. And the other thing I tell our clients all the time is make sure in your contract for any project, I don't care how small it is, you put in the contract that the architect must provide as-built at the end of the project. Some architect firms will not do that willingly. You're going to have to pay for it, but it is worth every penny. So you need to ask for as-built. If you don't have as-built, then the next best thing are the red lines. During construction, the trades folks will make notations. Maybe the plumbing was supposed to go in this one stud bay. Instead, they had to move it over for whatever reason. They'll make a note of that in red on the print. So those red lines are really important. So during the sorting process, you need to really think about the drawings you have in front of you. When you can find an as-built, you can pretty much throw everything else out. If you can't find an as-built, you need to look for the red lines and the construction sets. So you go backwards. Rarely will you ever need to keep the design drawings. Because like I say, the building typically changes from what they originally thought about to when it was finished. Next, you need to have an inventory. So what I recommend is keep it simple, but let's create a spreadsheet. Let's capture the building, let's capture the project. It could be project name, it could be project number, something that groups the drawings into a set. You want to annotate who originated the drawing. Sometimes that's very important. And then definitely the date. You know, in a school district, you may have just original construction. And then after that, you may have one renovation. But for hospitals and universities, buildings change all the time. So noting a year, if you got the date of the as-built, that's fantastic. If you don't, let's at least put the year the project was completed. And then I like tracking how many are supposed to be there versus how many you have. If you look at the front sheet, typically it's the first sheet or it may be the second sheet, there's an index. And that index lists all the drawings in that set that you should have. What I've seen, in some cases, you may make a photocopy of that index. And as you find the sheets, you could check them off. That way we can start to understand what we have and importantly, what we don't have. And then on any spreadsheet or any list, I always like having a general, a comments, or a notes box, because you may want to make a note. Looks like coffee was spilled on this drawing, can't read the upper left-hand corner, whatever. Notes are a good thing. Later, you might find another copy that's cleaner and you can replace it. This sorting step, I can't say enough how important this step is. It is probably, other than, you know, getting going on this and assigning someone, sorting has to be the most critical part of this process. Sorting takes time, it takes space. This is one of our buildings at Aerie. This was just one pickup with a hospital. I don't even think this is all the drawings they had. I think this is just one pickup. So it takes space to sort things. And you need to find someone to pay attention to detail. You can teach them the details, but you can't teach someone the desire to get it right. So find someone that's meticulous, teach them about the drawings, teach them about your facilities, how you want things labeled, how you want them grouped and stacked. So this is a very, very important step, the sorting piece. The next, you're going to have to label things. This is kind of an interesting picture. One of our clients used the, what's that called? The corrugated pipe, like drain pipe. Pretty inexpensive. So they just cut a lot of lengths and they've got it on a shelving unit. Shelving unit's about 3 feet deep. So it works pretty well. And actually, when we went in to convert this hospital, I think it was a hospital, to convert them to an e-library, this was so incredibly helpful. These tags represented a row on the spreadsheet on their inventory. Now for you, you're going to need to come up with some way of storing the documents. There's so many different options. This is actually one of my favorites, the flat files. The reason I like it is it somewhat protects the paper and it keeps it flat. Flat is important later when you go to digitize because you got to run it through a scanner. Quick story, one of our clients, we went in and weeded out so much duplication in their archives. They went from 46 of these cabinets, these 5-drawer cabinets, they had 46 of them down to 15, and one of them was completely empty for expansion. So it was fairly early in my company's life, and this client said, you know, Laura, you take all those cabinets you want. we don't want them anymore. We don't need them. You cleaned up everything so nicely. You have it in an e-library. We're never going to touch the paper. So I thought, wow, cool. These things are expensive. I'll take a bunch of them. So I rented a truck because they're big and heavy, and had, I think it was 2 men in the truck, picked up a whole bunch of these cabinets and bring them back to our office. And you know what? Over the years, I've been getting rid of every one of them. I think we have one cabinet left, and we keep flip chart paper in it. Because these cabinets, even though they're super nice, they take up a lot of space. This is a way to hang drawings vertically. I think this is my next favorite option because it keeps things, still flat. And it's fairly accessible. You can label each of these sticks to pull out the drawings. And there's fancy cabinets too that do this, but again, they're not cheap. This is a fairly inexpensive option. But one thing I don't like about this is paper has a memory. So if they stay rolled up like this for a long time, then it takes a fair bit of effort to get them flat again so they can go through a scanner, because eventually you're going to digitize. All right, the fifth thing I recommend is a logbook. This may seem kind of silly or elementary. I'm not sure how you feel about that, but go to the dollar store, buy a cheap notebook, start writing stuff down. Note when people take documents out, then have a note to say when they brought them back. Capture the name of the person and the company and how you get back in touch with them. What did they take? And then, like I said, I always like having a kind of a miscellaneous or notes column at the end, just so you can write anything down, anything that may be relevant, or leave it blank. Even if you cannot get the people in your department, your maintenance techs, to do this, to write down a logbook, because, I was a maintenance manager, so I get it. They're pushed for, he or she is pushed for time. They got to get a sheet they need, run out and troubleshoot and bring it back in half an hour. So it seems kind of silly to write everything down. I get that. At a minimum, anyone outside of your department needs to use this logbook, okay? Write it down. You wouldn't believe how many stories we hear from clients that say, my drawing sprouted legs, or an architect needed an entire set and promised they would have them back the next week, and we never heard from them again. Who knows what happened to that architect? They could have gotten hit by the beer truck. Have a note. Know what people take out of your archives. Let's make this serious. This information is serious. Even though we're talking about paper in this presentation, I would really be remiss if I didn't talk about digitizing or scanning. I think you're just going to have to accept the fact that we are in a digital world now. Facility management typically lags behind the rest of the institution 10 years in technology. So the time is now. Your paper needs to be digitized. So let's talk just a minute about that. The first thing, the most important thing, is have a plan, okay? Don't just jump at it and start doing it. I'm going to go through a couple of bullets here, and I'm going to tell you a few stories so you can avoid making these mistakes. First off, your plan needs to include the specs on your scanner. Those specs need to be black and white. You always do black and white, except when you don't, okay? So make black and white your default. Either 200 to 300 DPI is perfectly fine for an E-size print. Quick story, we went in to see a school district. This was several years ago, and they were very proud of the fact that they had bought a scanner. And this facility manager had gotten students to come in and scan all the drawings. So he didn't call Aerie in until after all the drawings were scanned. He was so proud of that because he'd put a lot of effort into it, coordinating all these different students to do the work. So we came in, everything looked great at first, and we said, let's take a look at your drawings now. Let's take a look at your files. Oh my gosh, the file size was huge. I mean, several hundred megabytes for each sheet. And we opened up a couple of those files, and they were very simple drawings. What had happened is the scanner's default was color. So every single drawing was huge. Black and white is all you need. Color uses at least, it thinks it's a photo. So it's going to be at least 1200 DPI, sometimes even 2400 DPI, which is crazy. You don't need that. And in fact, when the files are that large, it becomes almost impossible to share. You know, whether you put them on your server or you put them in the cloud, pulling files that large up and down, you don't want to do that. I mean, it can crash the system. You can't email files that big. So the hard news we had to give our client is they're going to have to rescan everything. It just made this guy sick when I told him that, but there's no way to fix it after the fact. You need to check behind the person you have doing the work. One of our clients, again, this was many years ago, they were scanning their drawings and they had a technician doing it. And the software they used had a, I guess, feature where you could despeckle the print. So when you scan a drawing, it turns all those lines into dots on a page. And if you look at the one in this drawing, in this picture, you can see it's kind of cloudy. You know, there's some areas that are kind of soft blue and others are whiter. So any of those cloudy areas become dots on a page. So what would happen, this technician would open the drawing and look at it and thought, wow, that doesn't look very good. And there was a button, I think it was called clean. It was a despeckle, but so she would hit this button clean and the drawing would do a complete, I don't know, would run through a cycle and then would show up and it would look better because it would take away some of those dots that were out in the field that didn't need to be there. So what she found is she hit that button again and again, and each time she hit it, the drawing got cleaner and cleaner, and all that noise, if you want to think of it that way, started disappearing. So she did that for hundreds of drawings. Fast forward maybe a year later, that technician no longer works there, and an engineer pulled up a drawing. And what he found when he zoomed in is the information didn't look right. There were bits and pieces missing. The arrows on the end of the dimension line were missing. What was clearly supposed to be the letter E was missing the bottom leg, and it looked like an F. Then a number that he thought would have been an 8 was missing the middle bar, and it was a 0. It looked like a 0. So he went back and dug through what happened and talked with the supervisor and found out that when her process of cleaning up the drawing, she went too far. And she cleaned up more than what was needed and in fact caused a lot of harm. And the sad truth about this story is they shredded all the documents after she scanned them. So no one went behind this technician and looked at her work. You don't need to open up every drawing and look at it, right? You know, you can catch a problem pretty quickly, but you do need to verify the work is done correctly. You need a file name, okay? You need to come up with a simple file name and you need to make a note of it. You need to put a big poster in front of the scanner. This is our file naming convention. Because if there's one thing that you need to do is you need to be consistent with your file names. You know, something intuitive like building or abbreviation for a building, or maybe you have a building number, but some unique identifier that claims the building. And then some very short project. It could be project name, it could be a project number, but something that groups it into that event, that project. And then I always like seeing the year. I think the year has a ton of relevancy. You know, with hospitals, they change so much. There's a big difference between a project that happened in 2010 versus 2020. So putting that year and then the sheet number, you don't have to put the title. You don't need to make the file name so long that it scrolls off the page. So come up with a file name, be consistent, make a note of it and put it right there on the scanner. The next big question in your plan needs to be, where are you going to store this file? You know, if you're going to put it on your server in SharePoint, you really need to think through your folder structure. And what you need to think about is how people are going to look for the information. This is not an easy task. Sometimes people may think of it in one way, and folks who need information processed differently think about it a different way. There's cloud solutions out there. There's even some cloud storage or free cloud storage systems that you can buy into. But again, you need to come up with a folder structure and you need to come up with a file name that makes sense. And then this sounds pretty intuitive, but you wouldn't believe how many people don't do this. Once you've digitized it, once you've verified it and named it and stored it, put a stamp on the piece of paper. It is so inefficient later when you go and look in a drawer and you pull out a drawing, I wonder if we've ever scanned that. I better go check, or let me scan it again. And the file name is slightly different. So now you've got 2 copies of the drawing with slightly different file names. If you just take a minute, even if you scan just the border outside of the content of the drawings, put that that stamp you bought on step 2 and note it that you've already digitized it. All right, I'm kind of rattling on and going through a lot of steps. So let's summarize our takeaways. First thing you need to do, put someone in charge. Put someone in charge. Get those stamps. I'm telling you, they're pretty cheap. You can get them on Amazon, probably less than $10, $15 each. Buy 2 sets even. The big step is that sorting step. The sorting and inventory. Don't try and shortcut it. Don't try and skimp on it. That is the most important step to get right. Now you got a label. Figure out where to put it. Okay, so make sure you know what you're doing there. One other quick story that I forgot to tell you about. One school district we worked with, they told us that they had a high school senior scan all their facility drawings. And before she scanned them, they were in a nice shelving unit and everything was labeled pretty well by school. And they had all the stacks of paper laid flat. So it was actually pretty nice. They built this wooden shelving unit that went around 3 walls of the upstairs of the maintenance department. And what this young woman did, she came in every day at lunchtime and worked until 3. The drawings had to be taken to another building to be scanned. So she would take all the drawings out of their respective little cubbies, put them on a cart and walk them to this other building and scan them. Well, no one really looked after her work. No one gave her clear instructions. So she named the drawing 001, 002, not PDF, 003. Not only did she do that, but then as she finished scanning, she just put the sheets on this big wooden pallet and just stacked them up. And when we went in to meet with this client, they told us this story. This girl had already graduated, moved on, gone to college, and they took her CD to find drawings. How are you going to find a drawing? It was labeled 1, 2, 3. There was no intelligence at all for them to use. And they showed me all the drawings. A year later, they were still on that wooden pallet. I bet they were stacked 4 feet high, these sheets, because no one had the time to go through those sheets and put them back on the shelves. Okay, so I'm just trying to tell you some of these things so you don't make the same mistakes. Get a logbook, cost you $1. Get started documenting what goes in and out of your archives. You need to digitize. You need to do that. But before you digitize, you need to do at least that number 3 step, the sorting and inventory. Because what you don't want to do is digitize all these duplicates, because then you're going to have a big mess of electronic files. One thing that you need to keep in mind is you don't have to do this all alone. There are people out there who can help you. This is and can be a big task, managing your paper. But the most important thing is to do something. Your archives in a mess is not going to heal itself. And messy paper, messy archives puts you at risk in all those ways that I shared earlier. So I would be remiss if I didn't shamelessly tell you what Aerie does and how we help you. So I just have a couple of slides talking about Aerie. We think of us as your archives expert. We've been doing this for so long, more than 24 years. We have seen a lot. We have walked into archive rooms where there is a snakeskin in a drawer. Man, that freaked out one of our technicians. We found dead rats in archives. We have gone into archives that are 60 degrees. You're freezing because it used to be an IT department with all these big computers. And we've been in archives that are over 100 degrees because guess what? There's no air conditioning in this warehouse. So we've seen a lot. We've been doing it a long time. Our people are trained. They know what to look for. So that whole sorting piece, you can really just give us the keys to your archives because we know how to go through it. We know how to group things. We know what to pay attention to. We know what we can get rid of and what we can't. And a lot of people trust us, a lot. We've been doing this for a long time, and we have a lot of very satisfied clients. And we created our own software. Our software was patented last year. We won awards with our software. So we can help you get all that paper mess organized, sorted, weed out duplicates, digitized, and then we can help you put it into an e-library that makes sense, that turns the raw data into information. So how I want you to think about AerieHub, I'd like for you to think about it as a tool. Just like you spend the money to get your maintenance techs a toolbox, you need to have a tool to help them get access to the information. Well, I mentioned this already. We take the data, we take the raw drawings, this kind of mess, and we turn it into information. And the reason I call it information is we've now sorted it out and grouped it in a way that's meaningful for the people who need it. You know, we talked about the different needs of different groups. When you have things digital, you can actually satisfy different groups much easier than when it's a paper world. So in this example, you see drawings that are broken out by discipline. That's how your technicians need to find information. But then there's also a button where you can see drawings by project sets. That's what your architects need. So I'm just going to wrap up here. A couple of screenshots about our software. The cool thing about AerieHub is it's web-based, and that means you can get to it really from anywhere. Anywhere you have an internet connection, 24/7. So you don't have to worry about your archives being in one location and having to commute to get there. So yeah, I think that's about it. Barb, we're down to the Q&A section, so I think
Yes.
I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Lori. What a great job. So I've just got a few questions, and it looks like we've got about 5.5 minutes on the clock. So if I go and get all my drawings scanned is one of the questions, will this fix the problem?
Oh, that's a great question. We actually get that a lot. Digitizing your drawings is a step of the solution, but unless you have a plan with how you're going to make those digital files available to others, it's not a great big step. You may think it is. It could be an expensive step, but you're not there yet. Your goal, if you remember from the beginning, is to make information available to those who need it, and ideally in the way they need it. So just like that young woman that digitized, that student that digitized all those files and named them 001, yes, they had everything digital, but they didn't have a way of accessing it. So you could end up with an electronic mess that's not so different than your paper mess if you're not careful. So it is a part of the solution, but it certainly isn't the entire solution.
Another question, and I'm going to preface it because you sort of answered this, but if I get all my drawings scanned and into the cloud, how would I find an individual mechanical sheet?
Yeah, that's a good question. Typically, when you're storing information in folders, you're only going to have the file name to go by. So the file name may not have enough information for you to get to a specific sheet. You've got a similar problem even if you don't digitize in the paper world. How are you going to find an individual sheet in an entire project set? So really, the best way to do it is to have a database. And what a database can do is add additional pieces of information for each sheet. And that piece of information can be the full title of the sheet or additional information, like there's red line markups on it, whatever. You can put lots of information in a database. And that way, when someone needs to find a specific sheet, like an electrician or a HVAC tech, they can search by those keywords and get it down to the sheet level. So, you know, the answer is there's not a great way to do it at the sheet level unless you put it into an e-library of some sort.
Okay. Is there value in me buying my own scanner?
Oh gosh, I get that question a lot. I'm not a fan of facility departments buying their own scanner for a couple of reasons. someone we touched on in this article, if the person running it doesn't know what they're doing or what to look for, or doesn't pay attention to detail, it's easy to screw up. But the main reason is scanners are expensive. You can buy secondhand scanners and you can buy less expensive scanners. However, less expensive scanners don't always convert your drawings the way that you need them, not in the best way. There are many companies out there that scan drawings for you. So I think it's more economical to outsource the scanning piece, quite frankly. Not only does the scanner cost a lot of money, in a couple of years it's going to be outdated, because you know how software and hardware continues to be reinvented, but you're also going to have to set time aside for someone to do the physical scanning. You're going to need the space, you're going to need someone, you're going to need to look behind their work. It's a lot of work. If you have extra resources in your department, you might decide it's cost effective, but usually it is not.
Okay. And the last question we'll have time for today is, how can I learn more about Aerie software and services? I'm the person for that. And it starts with a conversation about your documents and your drawings and your archives. I would like to better understand what you see as the biggest headache related to this information management. And then I'll be happy to show you AerieHub and discuss how Aerie can help you with unique solutions. We start off with just a basic 30-minute introduction and then go from there. So you don't invest a ton up front. You can kind of step into what does this look like and how am I going to move forward? I want to thank everyone for being here today. And again, thank you, Lori. Great presentation. To our listeners, be on the lookout for invitation to the Aerie Lunch and Learn in March. Don't get left behind in a digital world. In the meantime, don't hesitate to reach out to me with questions or set up time to see a deeper dive into AerieHub. My contact information is on the screen. Thank you again to everybody. I hope you have a great day.